This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to continue with the Sefer Devorah, and today we're learning the summation of the chapter 1 of the Parak Aleph of Sefer Devorah, where the Devorah sort of gives us his concluding comments regarding all Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, and Be'ezus Hashem to Monday, we will sort of summarize the 13 Midos, because we're going to see that it's critical that a person, remember them, be aware of them, and then when having the opportunity to fulfill one should actually recite, I am now fulfilling this mitzvah and this midah, this particular midah. The Devorah says, Ad kan higiu shloish esrei midos. Up till now, we have concluded the 13 midos, shabahen yeh ha'adam doime al kainai. That with them a person becomes similar to his Creator. Shehein midos shel rachamim el yonos. These are the midos of the elevated midos harachamim. As we said when we learned the Parak Aleph, the beginning of Parak Aleph, that there are really two sets of Yud Gimel midos in the Torah. There's Yud Gimel midos harachamim in Parshas Kisisa, and those are not the midos el yonos. The midos el yonos are found in the Navi Micha. And we explained the difference between them, that the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim were able, which were not El Yonos, were able to be recognized by Avram Avinu al pi sichloi, based on his seichel. However, the Yud Gimel Midos that are found in the Navi Micha, on the other hand, are not something that you could have come up on your own. This is something we need the tradition of the Torah to be able to come to, and we need the tradition of Nevuah. Usegulasan, the quality of these midos are such, ki kamoy sheyeh adam esnahig lamata, to the extent that a person conducts himself downstairs, kach yizke liftayach loy mida elyonim almala. To that extent, he will be zoicha to open up the midah upstairs, mamish kafima sheyisnahig, actually in commensurate and in accordance and in ratio with the way he conducted himself. Kach mashpia milmala, so too it influences from above. V'goyrem sha'oisa amida ta'ir ba'olam, and will cause that midah to illuminate in the world. So what the Devorah is revealing to us is that there are two dimensions of the midah. There's a dimension that it is incumbent upon us to act like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then number two, commensurate with that, God will accord Himself with those midos and show it on the world. So there are actually two separate obligations here. There's the obligation to emulate Hashem's ways, and then there's the concept that to the extent that we do emulate Hashem's ways, we are being ma'oirer the midos harachamim, and that shefa comes down to the world. So Rav Goldberg, in his commentary to Devorah in Ois Kuf Mem Gimel, he says, this could explain the Sefer in Parshas Eikev. The Sefer says, Laleches b'chol derachav, to go in all the ways of Hashem. These are the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Sefer quotes the pasuk, Hashem Hashem kel rachum b'chanun, and the Sefer quotes another pasuk, Kol asher yikra b'shem Hashem yimaleit. Anyone who calls out in the name of God will be saved. And then the pasuk says, Kol hanikra b'shmi ulechvoidi barasav yitzartiv afal sisav. And Rav Goldberg says that this Sefer is enunciating the two dimensions of the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. Number one, the pasuk Kol asher yikra b'shem Hashem is enunciating that corresponding to the fact that these are Midos Harachamim, well, this will arouse and awaken and be ma'orer in HaKadosh Baruch Hu to accord Himself toward us with those midos. So Kol asher nikra b'shem Hashem yimaleit means keneged the fact that we are created b'tselem Elokim. In other words, as follows. There are two dimensions. Number one is to the extent that we act through the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, Hashem is ma'orer on us, the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, and will save and spare us. That's dimension number one. Dimension number two is that we have to act with the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim because Hashem programmed us to be created in His image. So again, these two dimensions are enunciated as Kol asher nikra b'shem Hashem yimaleit. By according ourselves with those midos, we will be saved, we will be spared. Hashem will show rachamim on us. And then there's another dimension that we're obligated to emulate the ways of Hashem. Now the Sefer concludes that if you do what you need to do, I will do what I need to do. And the Netziv is bothered by this conclusion of the Sefer. What does this have to do with anything? If the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim are just the way in which we need to accord ourselves because we are created in the image of Hashem, so what does God mean? If you do what you need to do, I'll do what I have to do. But says Rav Goldberg, based on these two principles, we understand that aside from the fact that it's incumbent upon us to emulate Hashem as the Torah Devorah began with, because otherwise we are being untruthful to our mold, that we were created in the image of Hashem. If we don't accord ourselves that way, people are going to say, what a beautiful tzura, but what disgusting actions. But aside from that, by acting with the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, that will be ma'orer Hashem's Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim upon us. So now, Rav Goldberg says something very interesting. If you look in the Ramban is in this week's Parsha. The Ramban wants to know that when Moshe was mispalel for Klal Yisrael after the Ched HaMeraglim, Moshe did not invoke all the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. So in this week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu does not say MS. He does not say Zoicher Chaste Avos. Moshe Rabbeinu does not invoke Schos Avos in the Midos Harachamim that he mentions. He does not mention the Midah of MS. And the Ramban says, well, Moshe only mentioned the Midos Harachamim that Klal Yisrael observed. Because if we're not going to observe it, then God is not going to show it to us. So for example, Moshe did not say MS because we spoke Sheker on Eretz Yisrael. Furthermore, Moshe did not invoke Zchus Avos because the great Zchus Avos is the fact that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov loved Eretz Yisrael. And if we don't demonstrate love for Eretz Yisrael, then we have no right to access Zchus Avos. How could you invoke Zchus Avos when you show apathy and hatred toward Eretz Yisrael? So from this Ramban, we see the great principle of the Torah Devorah, that it is necessary to accord oneself through the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim to be eligible for Hashem to be ma'orer that corresponding midah on us. And this is something we see again from the Parsha, where Moshe can only invoke those midos that Klal Yisrael observed. Well, says Rav Goldberg, and this is something we once spoke out, we once gave a whole shiur on the subject. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says that El Mole HaKasav Amrei Efshar LaAmrei. Had the pasuk not said it, we could never say such a thing, and that is, Hashem cloaked and dressed himself like a shliach tzibur, so to speak, and he said, Im yasu lefanai kaseder hazeh, if you do before me like this order, then I will be moichal you. This, of course, is when the Rebbeinu Shalom demonstrated the 13 midos harachamim, Hashem karacham v'chanon. And we tend to think of it that Hashem says whenever we say the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, Loi Tashav Reikam, it will never be answered, it will never be rejected empty-handed. And we think it's enough merely to say it. But the Reishis Chachma quotes Rav Goldberg, and the truth is the Shla says it, and the Alshich says it, and many others say it, that it's not enough to say Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. Yasu lefanai kaseder zed. The Gemara says you have to act with the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. If we merely act with it, if we merely recite it, it doesn't accomplish anything. You need to act with the midah, because by acting with that midah, as the Torah Devorah says, there are two parts of Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. We're required to accord ourselves that way because we're created in the image of Hashem, and then corresponding to that particular midah that we follow, the Rebbeinu Shalom will shower us with that midah. And therefore the Gemara says, Yasu lefanai kaseder hazeh. I don't give you any guarantees by just reciting Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, but you actually have to accord yourself and follow and act with that particular midah. So it comes out, Rabbi says something very, very interesting, and that is Rav Goldberg has a very interesting chakira. He wants to know, okay, the Achronim seem to say it's not enough to say Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. You have to actually act that way and accord yourself that way. But do you actually have to do it? Or is it enough, so to speak, as you're saying it, to integrate and learn and study and bring a deep awareness of that midah toward yourself that, so to speak, God could testify that now after saying the midah and invoking the midah and studying it, you've acquired it to the extent that if the situation would arise, you would in fact accord yourself with that midah. And Rav Goldberg says that it's mistaber to say that it's sufficient merely to, obviously not just to say the words, but if you reach the madrega where by reciting it you'll integrate that into your personality, even if that situation never arises. So then that itself brings tremendous rachamim from the Rebbeinu Shalom, even if you don't even have the opportunity to accord yourself with that particular midah. Let's read on, and then we're going to finish this chapter. V'goyrem she'oisa hamidah ta'ir ba'olam. Meaning, just like a person accords himself below, he will be zoichet to open up that midah elyaina from above. Mamish, in accordance with the way he accorded himself, he will inspire a influence from above, and he will cause that midah should illuminate the world. Therefore, by the way, that means when you study Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, you're not only bringing rachamim to yourself, you're actually bringing rachamim to Kol Ha'olam Kulai Ulakach Al Yalizu Me'enei HaSeichel. It should never be removed from the eye of the mind. Shalosh Esrei Midos Elu. These 13 traits. The Hapasuk Lo Yosef Mipiv. The verse should never be removed from your mouth. And that is, you should always be frequent with Mikel Kamoicha. Noisei Avain. Va'oiver al Pesha. L'sheiris Nachalosoi. L'hechsik Lo Arapai. Ki Chafetz Chesed Hu. Yasher Rachmenu. Yichab Shem Sinu. V'sashel Msus Yom. Kachay Tosam. Titan Emes Yaakov. Chesed Avraham. Asher Neshvata Aveseinu. Mimei Kedem. So, Nassim, you're going to make a cheat sheet for us? You don't have to do it today, but after Monday, when we get a review, I'm giving you homework, or somebody out there, we need a short sheet to carry around with us in our pocket, to know, so when we could identify a situation, when somebody gets on our nerves. I don't know, nobody ever gets on my nerves, Baruch Hashem. My family is perfect, Baruch Hashem, but they say that there are people who have annoying people in their life, and or also, it's not like in my shul, Baruch Hashem, all my balabatim are tzaddikim, but there is a such thing. Sometimes people could go to a shul and they have people in their lives who give them opportunities to fulfill the Tomer Devorah. So therefore, Kidei sheyeh lo lemaskera, so it should be a memory to you. So the pasuk should never be removed from our mouth. Kasher yavoi lo ma'isa, when a situation arises, sheyitzarech lehishtamesh b'mida achas mehen, that you need to utilize one midah, yizkar v'yoymar, you should remember and you should say, Harei davers, that's right, this situation, that's Titei Nemes Yaakov, that situation, that's Chesed Avram, this situation, Mikel Kamaycha, Harei davers atole b'mida plainis. And then you should say, it's very interesting, in order to ingrain it in your consciousness, you should say, this is this midah. Any roitze lozes mimena. I don't want to move away from it. And the Rav Goldberg points out, it seems that by offering this tefillah, he says in Ois Kuf Nun, that by offering this tefillah, it helps that this midah should stay with you. And shaloi tisalim, it should not be ignored. V'tistalei kamidahi, and this midah should not be removed. Min ha'olam, meaning a person should be mispalel. Okay, I now have the situation of this midah. I don't want to move away from this midah. I don't want to ignore this midah. I don't want this midah to thereby be removed from the world if I don't accord myself with this midah. Okay, so Tam v'nishlam Perek Aleph. Be'ezus Hashem, Monday we'll try to do a quick recap of the 13 midas. Maybe we'll have some kind of short list, and then Be'ezus Hashem we could study, and Rebbeinu Shem should give us Siyata D'Shmaya to remember it and to implement it in our lives. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos. Shkayach. See you tomorrow. Anybody wants to join us tomorrow morning at 10:15? 10:30, that's right, 10:30. Thank you. Moshe K.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.